is that we don't have clarity. There's this fuzziness about what they do that actually creates the most value. And I'll give an example for it, Seth. So if this is a typical job description, for an office manager role, again, I'll give people the slides here later on. It has various things on it. It might have funky stuff like, stay on, maintain professional and accountable office environment and stay on top of collections. And that's great. But here's the coaching tip. Do your staff members, your remote people, really know what they do that creates the most value? Every one of the people that works for you should have had a conversation with you or one of their managers that says, here's how you create value, and here's how your success in that role is actually going to be measured. So if I were talking to somebody who's responsible for collections, I would say something like, Carla, you're doing a great job if our average collection days is under 28 per month. You know that we're really struggling here, and we have a very different conversation if that AR day slips to 45 or greater. Or maybe it's someone who's doing the scheduling. I say, you know what, Shannon, you're doing a great job with scheduling for our providers, for our doctors, or for our consultants, if the average number of client sessions per week in the office is 240 or above. They need to know, what do they do that creates the most value, and how is that success being measured? So from there, we'll go into like this idea that virtual lets you get rid of all the junk. We call it Druckering in our company, Seth. So this is famed management guru Peter Drucker, and he had wonderful books. I mean, Managing Yourself and other great books. And he talks in there about focusing you as an executive your best time on what creates value. And all the rest, we ignore it, we eliminate it, we phase it out, we reduce it, we replace it, we just avoid it. And so virtual lets you do that here. Quickly, I promise that website, mauimastermind.com/DF, standing for my name, David Finkel, slides. So /DF slides. And they'll get that. Matter of fact, they'll actually be able to get, Seth, I don't know which book. I know my staff set up for them to get a free copy of one of my books. I think it might be Build a Business, Not a Job, but whichever it is, they're there. Okay. So moving on with this idea, going back here, eliminate, void, distract. Whatever is the stuff that doesn't create value, I got to get rid of. Which, going back to, I said, we have to be careful of letting email become a proxy for responsiveness, become a proxy for are they doing their work? Because email left to its own and we start feeding it, it starts creating all this junk, wasted energy and effort. I see this a lot with vendors that we work with. I even see it in clients that we coach until we call it to their attention. It's like, wow, I didn't realize it. By me getting right on top of somebody for how fast they're getting back to me on an email, they might have spent the last hour and a half doing something really valuable for our business. But because I asked them a third time for what I needed, they're no longer going to be focusing and turning off email for an hour or two at a block. They're going to make sure they keep a certain part of their brain distracted by that email with low-level vigilance, even if it's to the detriment of the company. So we have to be careful about that. Principle 3, one of the most important, this idea that I have to shrink my units of accountability. So Seth, if I'm going to do virtual well, I cannot accept and set up an accountability structure that says, well, in a month, we'll find out if this person did what they were supposed to. At a week at the most, and oftentimes daily or multiple times during a week, are the units of accountability that work with the virtual world. Accountability units, though, is not just the when does someone check on the work, but sometimes it's about, I have to decrease or shrink the time between somebody who did a behavior and me giving them feedback so they know that the behavior was seen. So if I've got a sales team that's working remotely, and today they did their phone calls, their outreach, I better get back to them at the end of today or the beginning of tomorrow with some feedback of saying, hey, Juan, I noticed yesterday you did 60 dials outbound, fantastic, and you set up 4 meetings for stage 1 on the sales process. I just want to say you had a great day yesterday. If I wait and give him that same feedback, but I wait a week, or heaven forbid a month, the feedback is worthless. I have to shrink the amount of time between when they have the behavior and when they know that people have seen the behavior, the accountability for it. It's just a really important point when you're managing a remote staff. Shrink the units of accountability. Principle 4 says when I'm working remote and I've got staff that I'm managing remote, I've got to manage more flexibly. I get away with certain things in person because I can have the interpersonal side. But I'll share with you just quickly 3 comments about this. So one is the distinction between a role player and a grow player. A role player is somebody who just wants to do their job. You know what? Let me do my job, Seth, and at the end of the day, I want to go home, or I'm home, I want to leave the office behind. A grow player is somebody who really wants to do good work, but they want to grow professionally. Hey, give me new challenges, give me new things to learn. Don't put me in the same situation. Stretch me, push me, challenge me. A role player, the mistake or the frustration is when I try to push a role player into being a grow player, and that's a mistake. And we need role players, by the way. Role players are great, but if I have a role player that they don't want to grow, don't push me into new things. Let me do what I'm good at. So I have to identify, is this person a role player or a grow player? And if I've got 8 direct reports in a company, it's not that hard. I should have a simple cheat sheet card, an index card that says, you know, these 3 are grow players, these 5 are role players. I just need to identify that. And it's not what they say, Seth, it's how they behave to 2 things. Number 1, when I give these people feedback, how do they deal with the feedback? A role player says, yeah, but. They defend it, they rationalize it, or they minimize or push it away. A grow player is hungry for it, saying, let me understand that better. Got it. Well, I can see how I can do that better next time. Grow players want the feedback. They welcome it. They're hungry for it. They even ask for it. The second way that you tell is you watch. Do they embrace new opportunities, or do they kind of shy away from that? I give people micro tests. Hey, you know what? If you have a moment here, Caroline, I'd love to see what you do with X. A role player will never get to it if it's an ill-defined project that they're not fluent with yet. But a grow player will take a stab at it. We'll go for it, and you'll learn from these people over time. Next distinction around managing them is about capability. So if I'm managing someone remotely, it's really important that I just pause and I ask, how capable on a scale of 1 to 10, we call this a capability spectrum, is this person for this specific task or responsibility? And what that allows me to do is it allows me to ask the question, you know, like for example, let's say I'm handing over to Sean for him to take on, you know, the onboarding of a brand new client, but he's never done it before. He might be a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10. I can't let him do that. He needs to be by my side watching me do it, shadowing me. Now, if he's a 4 or 5 and it's a low stakes client, maybe I can let him take a stab at it with me being there to give him feedback or to support him. If he's a 9 or a 10 though, I better not be too closely managing him. He's gonna be frustrated. David, quit micromanage me, says that 8, 9, or 10. So just by pausing and asking how capable is this person in this specific area helps me know how to better manage them for what I'm doing there. Which leads me to principle 5. When you're doing remote stuff, protect your people from all the stupid crap. You can put a different expletive if you want in there, Seth. I'll just call it crap right now. I don't want to offend anybody, but you think of all the junk reports.
Crap is a technical term.
There we go. It's the technical term. I wouldn't want to use it, you know, in any other way. But you think about it, right? Like all the stupid stuff we ask people to do, reports that no one actually looks at, or you know, hey, can you handle this to do which affects one person, but rather than all this other stuff that's more important with it. It shocks me the amount of stuff we ask people to do that just doesn't matter. Principle 6 says put email in its place. Email is phenomenal at giving a quick note to somebody to ask a quick informational question. It's horrible for nuanced conversations. It's not the place to deliver news that has an emotional component to it. It's not the place to give feedback to someone who might be sensitive. It's not the place to manage complex coordination with projects. There are much better tools for that stuff. Working remotely, you know, a cloud-based platform, a Zoho Projects, an Asana, a Trello, an ERP system that I'm using. But please, please, please keep email in its place. There's some things it's great at, but we try to do too much, especially when we have people who are old school who then switch to remote and they flood their people with these emails to say, what's the status of this and the status of that? If I'm checking on the status of stuff and I'm doing it by email, I guarantee I'm doing it wrong. I should be checking on status through a project management tool which is designed that way, not through email, which is the wrong way to do that. We talked about not letting responsiveness be a proxy for my team working. Principle 7 says hire well, onboard even better. And that onboard piece, I just want to take a moment and give a quick coaching tip. When I'm working remotely, this is the time for me to think, how do I choreograph? Like, let's say I'm about to bring on a new team member. And let's say Rodney's about to join my team. Well, I want to choreograph his first moment on the team, his first day, his first week, his first month. Doesn't mean every moment of each of those things, but I need to give some thought to that. If I want Rodney to start picking up our culture, then I need to put some energy in how I onboard. A lot of times, Seth, people say, I hired the wrong person. And what they really did is they hired someone who could have been the right person, but then they ruined them by having no onboard process. Hey, I just hired Rodney. Rodney, your computer's not ready. We haven't got your passcodes for your email yet. Why don't you just sit there at home for the next 2 days as we get this all ready to go? You're on the payroll. Rodney's learning that at your company, people don't take deadlines seriously. Time doesn't matter. We're not unprepared. No, Rodney, welcome. On the very first morning, we're going to meet when you start. Let me go through the orientation together. Later today, I've got 2 meetings already preset with you. You're going to meet with Larry over on the technology side, and you're going to meet with Linda over on the HR side. Tomorrow, here's your schedule. Here's what it looks like for the rest of the week. Here's what it looks like for your first month. Just by taking some time to plan that out. Here's the cool part, Seth. Probably certainly 70% of that you can use for pretty much every single new hire that you have, just repeating it and just making that 30% difference if it's a operations versus a sales versus a finance hire. All right. Principle 8 says strategic depth when you're doing remote is non-negotiable. And what do we mean by strategic depth? I mean, think about it. What would happen to your company? What would happen to your team if the proverbial car accident happens? Or Linda, who's your key person, her husband gets transferred and she ends up moving along with him, and you don't have her available to work. Or Rodney's would say his elderly parents get hurt and need him to take care of them, and he needs to take a 2-month leave of absence. Strategic depth says we always make sure we've got some real bench strength for what we do. And here's kind of what most people think about strategic depth. I think, oh, I just need to have a good team. And your team matters, but that's like a one-legged stool. If everything is in balance, yes, having a backup for each function is all you need. But in today's world, we need to think of a 3-legged stool. We need to have that team, they matter, but I have to think about the internal systems and internal controls that I have, the best practices, the proven processes, procedures, spreadsheets that are formatted, the video-based training pieces. And then I need a culture that says, at our company, our systems are consistently being transferred and trained to different people so that we back up each other. And it's really so straightforward. All we need to do is say, hey, this quarter, here's the one thing I can do in my area of the company to increase strategic depth. For example, let's say I'm the only person who knows how to run the payroll as the owner of the business. Great, I've got to have a backup who can run the payroll. Or let's say I was running our marketing team and I'm the only one who knows how to do our e-letter. Well, great, I've got to create a step-by-step written guide for someone else to do it and cross-train so that Chris could do our e-letter if need be. It's really straightforward. Now, everyone says, well, gosh, how's my team going to deal with that? Well, let's just share a quick story with that. So this is Anne. She runs a marketing firm. It's a coaching client now of ours for almost 3 years now. When we first started working with her, less than a year into it, she had a big accident, a biking accident, not motorcycles, but actually cycling accident. She was in San Francisco, beautiful day, was taking off her jacket, windbreaker while riding, and she crashed and she got a massive concussion. So the doctor's first thing is, for 3 months, you can't even look at a computer screen. Wow, I mean, it's big stuff. Well, that year, thankfully, she had started the strategic depth process. They had their biggest year ever from a sales perspective. They brought on 21 new client engagements, a record, during the 3-month period when she could not do any work herself or was limited to just a few hours per day from that part. And this is why I would tell anyone, you've got to broaden your definition in your business. Yes, you want to grow your sales. You want to improve your margins, of course. And we should also be looking for, how did this quarter my business become more owner independent? How do we have increase of strategic depth this quarter? I need to look at both those metrics, growth, but also the growth of our strategic depth. And we believe in it so strong. We actually do awards every year with coaching clients. These are the people who won the Freedom Award. They increase their owner independence of their company. It's a big deal. And everyone says, well, what's my team going to think? Well, you know what, first of all, your team recognizes that if you're the only one who can do things as the owner, that their job is in jeopardy. They know that. So if your team wants a greater opportunity to grow, or the ability for them to be in a much safer work environment, or to be part of a company that they can have a bigger impact on, your team's going to think strategic depth is actually a good thing with that part. And I just think, you know, people are so scared about that. Well, you know what? I think if you approach it the right way, especially if you do it in the point of interview before you hire, strategic depth is easy for you to do. And again, if you want the slides, I know I'm going quickly, but we said, you know, in 30 minutes or less, how do I give my very best bottom lines for what to do to do a virtual business better? MauiMastermind.com/DF slides. And that will take me to Principal 9 says, we need some structure. Yes, we're virtual, but we still need some structure. What are the landmarks, the traditions in your company? You know, every week in my company, we do something called the Big Rock Report. It's a standardized, structured way of reporting of information. I know in our last webinar, Seth, I shared exactly what that looked like. I'll make sure I put a copy of the Big Rock Report in the slides, but my point being, that's an example of a landmark. Every week, my staff can count on that. Every week, we have a quick 15-minute huddle conference call beginning of the week with everybody in the company for quick announcements. Once a month, we do a web-based meeting with everyone in the company. We bring a client on to share in 5 or 10 minutes, you know, what's been the impact of the program. That way our staff can see what's this doing for our clients' lives, even though some of our staffs have never met one of our coaching clients, our accountant people or our marketing people. They hear the stories, but this is their chance to actually, you know, put a face to a name and see a person and hear their voice and their story. What are the structures and the traditions that allow you to do virtual better? And number 10 says, yes, we're virtual, but we still need to give a little bit of intention for how we do relationships here. You know, Seth, one thing I've seen people do is they say, okay, come to the next video team meeting and bring a photograph, and we're going to transfer the screen share and let everyone share a photo. Or, you know what, hey, what did you do this weekend? Or, you know what, I'm going to have a one-to-one coffee virtually with someone by just giving them a phone call and asking, you know, what's going on in your life and tell me more. Or once a quarter, we're still going to gather everyone together. Or once a year, we're going to gather everyone together in person. It costs time and attention and sometimes money, but it makes everything else go better. I don't have to do it every day. I don't have to do it every week or even every month. But if I'm not doing that in some meaningful way every quarter or year, there is a part that becomes denigrated with that. So, you know, I'm curious here. Again, I'm going to give you, I'm jumping through a whole bunch of slides, but I'm going to just let you guys again, you can get all the slides for the rest of it here. Seth, you and I talked about doing this quickly, and I think those would be the bottom line. If I only had 25 minutes to share of the very best, that's the bottom line for doing virtual really well.
That is absolutely incredible. I mean, that was a literal fire hose of content in a very short period of time, which is my bread and butter. I've got pages of notes. I got a whole bunch of awesome ideas we can implement that will make a difference. I greatly appreciate you being here and giving so generously of your time. I know it's incredibly valuable. Everybody go to MauiMastermind.com/D as in David, F as in Finkel slides, where you'll be able to register to get the slides and a copy of the book, Build a Business, Not a Job, because a lot of us had the entrepreneurial myth, right? As Michael Gerber says, we said, oh, I'm a financial planner, I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, I'm working for some other firm, I can do this better. I'm going to go start my own company so that I'm the boss, thinking that because we knew how to do the thing, we then knew how to run a business that delivered the thing, which are two completely different skill sets, as you know. So I love that we focused on the business as opposed to in the business today. And we spent all the time on building the culture, the systems, the teams, the communications, the ways to make ourselves and our team deliver better results and be more efficient and more productive in this time. If we were virtual before, this will make it better. If we haven't been operating virtual and we're forced to because of COVID, this will obviously improve what we're doing and give us some structure. So thank you so, so much.
All right. I appreciate it, Seth. Thank you for letting me join the Sharkpreneur team for a little bit. And everyone have a great rest of your day and put some of the stuff into action right away.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for watching or listening. We'll talk to you the next time, and make sure you go to mywaymastermind.com/DF slides.